Hey guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I am excited to show you today an example of a style guide using our Canva template that is available on the website. This is something that you can use in your classroom as your staff develops your theme. If you already developed your theme, then this is going to be a great resource for your staff, especially new staff members, to be able to refer to in learning what is a theme, why we use a theme, what our design elements are, what our fonts and our sizes are supposed to be, basically anything and everything design-wise and theme-wise and content-related that they need to know will be in one single document. And I think it's really cool to have a style guide that's kind of a living, breathing document that changes over time. So you might create it at the beginning of the year and then you PDF it or you print it out and you give it to your staff members, but then you keep the editable version because you can continually be adding modules to it. So on our website and in the description box below, there is a link to this Canva template. And what it'll do is it'll create a version of this document inside your Canva account. So you do need to have that first. If you don't already have a Canva for Education account, highly recommend it. There's a little bit of a verification process to be verified as a teacher, but then you get a free pro account and you get all the pro features, which is absolutely worth it. But you can use this with the free version too, but I recommend using the education version. But this is what the actual template looks like. So I'm going to look at it on grid view just to show you an overview of everything that's included. And this is meant to be a place for your staff to kind of dump all their ideas in the beginning as they're developing it, and then pull out the best ideas and create it as a guide for your staff to use when creating their pages. So the way that this is created is everything that's a tan page. So these and these darker ones are like dividers. Those are informational. So these are like instruction pages that show you how to use the document, or they show you basic journalism stuff, like what is a yearbook theme, why we have it, why we use it, how to develop it, that sort of stuff. So the idea is that you read these, you go through them, you work through them with your staff, then you dump them, you delete them, you get rid of them. And so you're left with just the white pages, and that becomes your style guide. So I created this as an example for you, so we created this as a template for you, but then we have an example as well to show you how you would use this document. So this is what you'll download when you go to the site. But then here's the example that I made using that template. So as you can see on grid view here, all of those tan pages have been deleted and they've been replaced with actual content that I'm using for this theme style guide. Now, it looks kind of similar because I went ahead and kept like the Organized Advisor colors as my theme colors. So the blue and the yellow and the white, like those are, I'm saying, are my sample example theme. But you could absolutely replace this first page with things that are related to your theme. So swap out these fonts, swap out this little title. Instead of putting like your publication name, put your actual theme name, put your school name, do whatever. Like replace this and make this cover look like your theme. And that will help drive home like the fact that everything can be branded. So then we have what I call like the mood board. So these are like pictures that evoke the same type of emotion or feeling that I want someone to feel from our book. So a couple of things you'll notice here is they're not all like yearbook worthy pictures. Like there's a sunset, there's some ice, there's sunflowers, two of them, a leaf, but I want to find images that look like the theme look and feel that I want when someone flips through the book. So not only are these pictures in the blues and yellows that we want, there's also some editing to them. So like this one is black and white, but it kind of has a tone to it that's a little bit yellowy. So that might be a treatment we do throughout the book some places. Also, some of the whites of these photos have been made to be a little bit more creamy, tan, yellowy colored. So like this, you can see in this sky here, and it just adds a little bit of a treatment to these photos to kind of match a look and feel. And that, maybe in your book, you don't edit your photos with like a treatment like that, but you absolutely could, as long as it doesn't, change the integrity of the photo. So this photo, you can see I don't know if you can tell, but based on, because it's kind of next to others, but this is maybe a little bit like contrast is brought down. It's a little bit more muted colors because that would be the vibe that we're going for just in this example. So you want to find photos that kind of evoke that either emotion, the color palette, the type of images like candids. Maybe you want to show a lot of high fashion magazine style images in your features. whatever, like whatever you want to fill this mood board up with. You could also do multiple slides of this mood board. So if you have multiple editors and you're kind of developing it, like they can all build their own, and then you can pick and choose what your favorites are. And also these are totally editable. So these little boxes, you do not have to keep them this size. If you have more images, less images, like you can adjust them to like fit whatever kind of mood board you want. But I think it's helpful for someone that's like brand new to yearbook and learning design, that they can go and look at this and be like, okay, like I can feel what this yearbook is supposed to feel like looking at this, even though this isn't a yearbook spread, if that makes sense. So then I purposely chose a yearbook theme that I don't think would be the greatest for an actual yearbook, because I want staffs, if you're watching this video, I don't want you to just steal my theme. I want this to truly be an example, because there's a very inappropriate, however, in my opinion, a good song called Young, Wild, and Free. And we don't want to necessarily, portray any of sort of those sentiments in our yearbook theme, but the phrase young, wild, and free, I think is a really cool concept for a yearbook. So that's the example theme that I chose. And so the first thing is just what the theme phrase is, but then have your students explain why. Why did they choose that theme? Why does it represent our students this year at our school, in our city, in this school year? And explain what the words mean to them and what they think about when they think of the words. And this isn't necessarily things that are going to go on their opening spread. It might not be anything that they use in the book, but this is the brainstorming phase. So this is where they're thinking through, like, why did you choose that theme? If it's just because it sounds cool or it's pretty or we saw it somewhere else or whatever, like that's not good enough. Like you need to have your students think through the reasoning behind it, because if there isn't enough background to why they chose it and why they think it is the best for this year, they will not be able to carry it out and follow through with all the spin-offs and the other content ideas. Maybe visually they'll be able to carry it through because that's in some ways easier. But honestly, like if they're not able to think through in this like paragraph form of why they chose it, then that theme is just going to fall away pretty quickly. So for my example, I said high school students are the epitome of young, wild, and free. And then I broke it down. So why are they epitome of young, the epitome of wild, and the epitome of free? So for young, I said, and I wrote it obviously in the student's perspective. So we are no longer children, but young adults learning to manage the balance between adventure and responsibility. We are fun and energetic, learning new things about ourselves and each other every day. And so I'm not going to read the entire thing. You're more than welcome to, but I just wanted to highlight that I just wrote this out of my brain, kind of brain dumped it out there. Why does young, wild, and free resonate with my student body, right? But in writing it out, you get keywords. Go away, Canva. You get keywords. So you get things like children, young adults, learning, balance, adventure, responsibility, fun, energetic, new things, learn about ourselves, learn about each other. In that one sentence, 2 sentences, you get so much information that you can use for content, for headlines, for subheads, for theme integration later on. And so taking the time to write this out and just like word vomit out why you chose this theme, you can actually pull a lot of content from that. So that is explaining why we chose this theme phrase. Then I actually added a page here that was not in the template, but I just wanted to put our word mark or our logo on here. And so this isn't anything fancy. Again, I'm using like Organized Advisor, like aesthetic. And so I have like our advisor font. It's called Wilderness. Montserrat is these other ones. This one is Roboto condensed and then an outline version. And so this is super, super basic, but ideally, maybe you have a graphic that you've used on the cover of your yearbook, or your cover artist has kind of made this for you. And so you can throw that in here to kind of inspire your designers so they know what aesthetic you're going for. If you have a mock-up of your cover, throw that in here. If you have some like inspiration that was where your theme came from, throw that in here. Like anything you can add that tells that story about why your staff chose that theme is going to be super helpful. So then we have a list of theme-related words and phrases. And so I broke mine down by section. So I have young, wild, and free, and words that relate to each one. So under young, you have, youthful, adolescent, immature, budding, new, blooming. Literally go to thesaurus.com, type in the word young, and don't just write down all the words, but write down the words that you could see representing your student body this school year, negative and positive, because even if you don't use it, it will give you, it might jog a memory or jog a thought or something in someone else. And so you really want to make this as big of a list as you can to make sure that you have really thought through everything, because whoever's looking at this, even though immature isn't a positive word, it could be a headline that says like, we're not immature or something like that, and it can be used in that way. So don't feel like you have to only choose positive words. And you don't have to necessarily break it down either. If your theme doesn't lend itself to that, then don't worry about that. But you do need to make a list of all of the theme related words, but then also phrases. So I also broke it down by things that are like opposites, and then just general things that kind of came into my brain, and then some phrases, as you can see here. All right, and then I started to think of some specific ideas. So this is, again, another slide that I added that wasn't part of the template. It's just kind of grew out of this one. So when I started thinking about these phrases that kind of came from these individual words, I started to think about content. And so something like young at heart uses that word young from young, wild, and free, but it could be a feature about Valentine's Day. At our school, the choir used to hand out carnations and do like singing Valentines. They would come, and it was kind of like a quartet that would come and sing a song and deliver a Valentine or a carnation. And so Young at Heart is a perfect headline for something that explains, someone that's maybe a freshman and they're doing the choir Valentine's Day thing for the first time, and they're explaining their perspective, and your subhead would explain what the feature is actually about. But Young at Heart is a perfect headline to feature Valentine's Day and the young, wild, and free sentiment. So there's just a couple of other ones there that I thought of, but you can come up with as many as you possibly can. These are great for your staff to kind of look at them and be like, oh, okay, I can see how you got from individual words to phrases to specific ideas. All right, and then we talk about our theme tone. And so this is where we're starting to look at those words that we pulled, look at our energy from our mood board, and kind of determine what our theme is and what our theme is not. So I described this theme as relatable, comfortable, refined, which is like where the blue comes in, but with pops of color, like really fun, bright yellow. So that makes it adventurous, exciting, interesting. I have 2 lines of information here. You could literally have paragraphs describing what your tone is. And then I think it's also important to consider what your tone is not. So I said not overly professional, polished, minimal, quiet, plain, boring, clean, muted, whatever, old-fashioned. Because design, if you're looking just at design trends, modern, minimal, magazine style with lots of white space is trendy right now, but that doesn't match our theme at all. Young, wild, and free, we want crazy, we want bold, we want bright, we want maybe a little bit messy. We don't want modern minimalistic magazine design because it doesn't match the energy of our theme. Even though we love that design and it's beautiful, it doesn't match the verbal and visual connection of our theme. So we want to make sure we tell our staff, that is not what we're going for. We're going for more this. And a really easy way to, and fun way to further flesh this out and further describe this to your staff is to give your yearbook theme a celebrity persona. And I did not come up with this, and I actually don't know who did come up with this. So if it's you, please let me know, and I will definitely credit you with this. But I think it's a great way to explain the personality of your yearbook theme. So for this one, I said, if we're going for young and fun and adventurous and bright and crazy, I'm going to go with Tom Holland because he is young and fun and hip and crazy. And he is Spider-Man, who is young, also and fun and relatable. He's a superhero. He, as himself and as Spider-Man, is discovering himself. He's growing into adult, just like all your high school students. He's known for being cheeky and funny, and he's in a relationship with a cool chick, Zendaya. And he's unashamed, and he's can be silly. I don't know if you guys have seen the Umbrella lip sync video, but it is 10 out of 10 would recommend it. It's so funny. And then, he's sociable. He's pretty caring. You've seen him in interviews with Zendaya. She's anxious, and he comforts her, or he's just really sweet. He'll stop an interview and go and like see her on the red carpet. Like, he's known for that. So that perfectly translates to Yearbook with like his high energy. He's adventurous. He's funny, the bright colors, whatever. And so then I put some pictures of him, like kind of portraying that energy. He's looking at her, he's Spider-Man, and then he's winking and kind of making a funny face. Like, that is the energy, the vibe that we want to portray with our yearbook. And so that really helps students understand. And you want to pick someone that they know. Like, you don't want to pick, like, if your students don't know who Elvis is, which I don't know, maybe they don't pick Elvis as your person. Like, make sure it's somebody that they know, they can easily relate to. They can look at that font and be like, does that look like Tom Holland? No. Okay, we're going to move on. It's very quick and easy to determine, does that XYZ match the energy of that persona? Okay, so then we have our color schemes. And so here I picked 2 main ones, 2 secondary ones, and then an accent color. So I really like the idea of doing this with bubbles, and this is really popular with brand identity too, even in the professional world. And so if you pick 5 colors and they're all like equally weighted, it can feel really hard to to design with them competing against each other because they're all equally important. And so this way, like your main color here is that blue and that tan. Tan might be like backgrounds. It might be boxes behind captions. It might be whatever it is. But then the yellow, you're not going to use that as much as you would the dark blue, right? So it really puts some emphasis on like how to use those colors instead of just kind of throwing them all equally. I've also seen where you do like 3 main colors and an accent color, or you do 1 color and then the rest are accent colors. So just the size of these bubbles can change depending on what your specific color scheme ends up being. And then I think it's always good to name the colors. So like navy, light blue, tan, gray, yellow, or whatever. Or you can name them something fun like blueberry, or that's kind of more blueberry maybe. I don't know. And then put the CMYK values here. So that way when you're in your design program, you can make sure that you're using the right colors. Blue is really, really hard in particular. So it's really important that those CMYK colors are correct because they can end up looking pretty purple. All right. Then this is from Bridgeland High School. I saw in their style guide, I borrowed this from them. They put all their colors in boxes here, and then they used the letters in each box over top to show what those colors look like paired. And then they gave indicators. Yes, this is okay to use. Use caution with this. It's a little harder to read. And then absolutely do not use this. And so I think that's super, super helpful for teaching your students color pairing because they're able to see that this is, not something that I would use. Like this yellow and this tan, don't use it. That's going to look like garbage. It's too hard to read. It's too hard to see. But this tan on either of these blues, A-okay, totally fine. The light blue on the dark blue and vice versa, a little harder to read, but not the end of the world. And so it makes it a lot easier to see like how to pair these colors together in addition to the amount that you're using these colors from the bubbles. All right, so then this is probably the most common thing that we've seen from style guides without it being fully fleshed out is basically just something that says how we're using our fonts. And so you'll have your headline font, you might have an accent word, a subhead, a body copy. You could do a pull quote, a directive, which is like above, far left, saying where the photo caption is pointing to, and then photo credit. So I gave examples of them here. And then in this gray section, I put what the actual font is and if there's any sort of treatments. So like this one has an outline, this one's always lowercase, this one's always uppercase, et cetera, and kind of explaining how it's used together. Like this is a 5-point line always. It's never thicker, never thinner. It's always the same. All right, so then we go into our section names. So in this example, I gave you a bunch of different options. In the template, there is just one like section block here. But as you can see, I actually came up with 3 different sets. And so you can take this information and like adapt it to your student body and your staff and how they're brainstorming. So during the brainstorming phase, you might have 3, and then once you decide on whatever it is, like delete the others and just make it about that one that you decided. So for instance, like my option 1, I said it's like traditional coverage. So we have our student life, academics, organizations and clubs, sports, portraits, and reference. So 5 sections. And then I came up with spin-offs that relate to the young, wild, and free theme. So just having fun, exponential growth, that kind of points more towards academics, math, but young, wild, and free, they're exponentially growing. Sports, they're unrestricted. Portraits, only young ones, and reference, finding the balance. And then I gave some thoughts, like we've done traditional so much, maybe we really want to switch it up. But the spin-offs are good, they make sense. Then theme 2, or option 2, is more theme-centric. And so we're really leaning into that young, wild, free. But I had trouble kind of fitting the content, like the actual yearbook stuff, into young, wild, and free. So, maybe the young is portraits and academics because that makes sense. Those are showing the young people. And wild makes sense with student life, but that means that portraits and academics are first. That could be kind of weird, but maybe like because it ties into the theme so well, we just switch it up and we don't care that portraits come first. Like that's what we want to do this year. Whatever you want. But then some thoughts, like one thing is, where does sports go? If you're really leaning into that young, wild, and free, like where are they? They're not in there. So really considering like how to pull your theme through the sections without sacrificing an entire section like sports. All right. And then another example, which is also really popular right now, is chronological. So usually it's like a summer and then a fall, and then sometimes winter is kind of thrown in with fall as well, and then a spring, and then reference, and just using those, young, wild, and free. Young is summer, wild is fall and winter, and free is spring because it's like the end of the year. That kind of makes sense. What do we call the reference section though? Because that's where like your ads and your index goes. But like, does it need a name? Do we just call it reference because it doesn't really fit with the young, wild, and free? What do we do? And so each one has pros and cons, but then you can take this to your staff and be like, okay, let's talk about which of these do we like best. All right, so then I just threw some opening copying ideas. These are phrases from that first page up here. So where we talked about like why we chose that theme, pulled some words from that. And so that's where your editors or maybe your editor-in-chief can go and start to kind of like put together some ideas for their opening copy. This also might be something that you pull out into a Word doc and you don't actually leave in your style guide, but it might help your staff to see this because then they can pull ideas for their spreads as well. So up to you. But I wanted to give a place to make sure that you had a spot for opening copy ideas as you thought of them that you could just kind of dump and then you can move it wherever you need to. All right, so then we have a place where you can put your Showstopper spread ideas. And so I just took one of those from the beginning, first time for everything. If you know the page number, you can put the page number. How it relates to the theme, you can just explain it here. And then you have a whole bunch of storytelling or content ideas that you could do for the Showstopper spread. Showstoppers are something that you really want to have it be a special content that's super, super related to the theme, and a special event that really needs that extra coverage. And it's a completely different design than a traditional like modular layout or sections. Like it's still within your theme design, but it's visually very different. It literally stops someone in their tracks when they open it and they look at it. They're like, oh, okay, like this is different. That's the goal of a Showstopper spread. So it's stuff that like is a little bit different or a little bit special, and then you can design it in a way that looks different or special too. Okay. Then we have a spot for you to put your graphic elements. And so a lot of staff, I think they look at like, okay, what is our theme element? And they're like triangles. And they think that their theme elements are triangles. But really, it's so much more than that. And really, if you think through, like, how do you want your design to be carried through? Like angles and slants and like pie shapes, those all kind of relate to triangles. So maybe you allow all of those. And you want to give your staff a list of all the kinds of things that you want them to do. Otherwise, they're going to design their layout. They're going to throw some pictures on there, throw some captions on the page, and then put a triangle behind it and be like, it's on theme. And it's hard to articulate why that's not okay and why that's not enough if you haven't given them the examples and the options to use. Because as you're learning Yearbook, it's hard to conceptualize and break down, looking at a really good spread, what makes this spread really good. And so the more examples and the more ideas that you can kind of put in their hands, the better the yearbook will be, to be honest. And the better those editors, once they move up and they become editors, the better those books will be over time as well. And so this, usually when I talk to staff, they have one, maybe two graphic elements. This is, I don't know, let me put it on count, 15 graphic elements. So, really thinking through a design and how to make it, I'll put it back on bullet point, how to make it look complete, you can come up with this list pretty quickly. So I want to show also some examples of these graphic elements at the end. But I have a couple more slides before that. So before we get to the examples, we have the folios. So these are gigantic. Obviously they wouldn't be this big on the page, but I just want to show what the folio might look like. I don't love these folios. I think they're just kind of basic, but I wanted to give you a space to put the folio design in there because the folio is a great area, a good piece of real estate for you to incorporate theme elements. Just put your colors, your fonts. Don't just put 2 and 3 in black, make it related to your theme. That's a great space for you to add content. That's a great space for you to add theme content or theme elements, design elements, as well as actual content, like your page by. I've seen people put senior spotlights here, not senior quotes. We hate senior quotes. Senior quotes must die. But a senior spotlight about what their favorite memory was, or something related to the theme. Ask something about being young, wild, and free, and have them put that there. All right, so now here's our examples. So here's a spread where we see the fonts here. We see the colors. We have yellow, but yellow is used in small doses, based on the hierarchy. We have a stacked headline with super is kind of crooked and overlapping. We have a long story, 2 photos over here, 1 dominant photo, and then 1 photo up here in the corner. The spread's not bad. The spread looks good to me. It looks complete. It looks finished, but it looks kind of plain. So this might be someone that you told them, we're using thin lines and overlapping elements in our as our design element. But that's it. They're not really being very creative there. But then here you can see this is actually the exact same layout. So this is examples from the puzzle pieces spread generator. So you can see that, this top part, this timeline section is the exact same size and shape as this. And then this little block up here is the same as this block. This 2 photos over here turn into this block. We have the same dominant photo here, but instead of a big long story, we have a broken up kind of Q&A, big block quotes kind of. And so just looking at this spread versus this spread, it just looks a lot more complete. It looks a lot more done. And this happened because you gave your staff more options. So they not only stacked the headline, they added a bar behind it. They added a shadow behind the word super. They tilted all these pictures. They got 7 people in this versus 4, I think was the other one. They added a mini story here in the sidebar. They put him into a special feature instead of just a caption and a picture box. They added a pull quote pointing to this photo and added a design element here that wasn't there before. There's a lot more going on. It's a lot more complete. Oh, they added this hash slanted bar kind of thing over these 2 elements. Oh, and the whole story is formatted differently too. And it just looks a lot more robust because you've given your staff more design elements to choose from. And then here is yet another option where you have layered elements here with the headline going out, kind of offset over the edge. You have that quote box coming back. You have a featured kind of outlining this person with going to a pull quote. You have giant quote marks. You have the slanted hash marks here. You have the exact same theme design elements, but executed in a completely different way. And so this is a really good example to show how you want to put these examples fully completed spreads, obviously with dummy text and fake photos, but put these into your style guide so your staff can see, oh, this is what I could create. But then also they can pull these sections. So if they look at this spread and they're like, I really like how this was used here. I can do this. I can recreate this. I really like how this was outlining this person. I really like how this little box was a mini story with like 5 photos together. They can recreate it and they can see how that example came to be versus just kind of like sort of telling them, yeah, we want to use backgrounds behind our headlines. Like it's harder to visualize that when you're learning than when you already know like yearbook world and design and stuff like that. So you have to kind of put yourself back in the shoes of a freshman or a sophomore joining yearbook staff or a brand new staff member. Sometimes I've heard of staffs in middle school where you have new staff members every semester or every quarter, and that is really difficult. So the more that your staff can build out these examples and show them, I think in here I have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. That gives them a lot of content to be able to like be inspired from. And they might take these and like think of something completely new. And that's great. Like that would be perfect for them to do. But starting from scratch, opening a spread and having a blank screen stare at you in the face is super intimidating and really scary. And so giving them this style guide, giving them the examples, showing them how to use these elements is super, super helpful for new staff members. It'll ensure that your yearbook is consistent from start to finish. Doesn't matter who's working on the spread. And it also saves you from having to like go into a new staff member's page, it being awful, and you having to like redo the entire thing and crush their dreams because they worked really hard on it, because this gives them a roadmap. They have to follow these rules and they know what the rules are because you've handed them to them versus assuming that everyone's on the same page. So I'd really encourage you to download the style guide, use it as an example, but make it your own. Add pages, delete pages, do whatever works for you. Use it as a dumping ground to put ideas as you're developing your theme, and then use it as a like standardization document for once you start creating. And then once things are being created, continue to add them back into the document. So, like I said, the link to download this is in the description box below. All right, so that's all I have for you today. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions at all, you can reach me by hitting the contact button on the website. That goes straight to my inbox, and I'm happy to help you with whatever you need as you're developing your yearbook theme or anything else related to advising school publications. All right, I'll talk to you later. All right, I'll see you guys later.